A genius has been asleep too long, too long. A people with a beauty rich and strong. A heritage that breaks second to none. Original equalities, don't change them to fit in. Now that you're on top, just keep rising, keep rising. Experience new life, be born again. Spread your wings, black butterfly. You can do most anything your heart desires. Yes, you can. Freedom comes with understanding who you are, who you are. It's time to reclaim your place among the stars. Spread your wings. What's going on? Truth not revealed unless you choose to see. Past generations lost in history to hide our culture and identity. Please, please, please keep your pride. You can't be another color butterfly. No, you can't. So when you shine, let everybody see your light. Yes, they can. Cause you know out of sight means out of mind. Spread your wings, black butterfly. You can do most anything your heart desires. Yes, you can. Freedom comes with understanding who you are. Yes, it does. It's time to reclaim your place among the stars. Yes, you can. Plant those wings and fly. Spread your wings and fly. Pretty butterfly. Black butterfly. Time to spread those wings and fly. Black butterfly. Black butterfly. Black butterfly. Black butterfly. Black butterfly. Black butterfly. Black butterfly.
There's an old Christian spiritual called There Is a Balm, B-A-L-M, in Gilead, wherever that is, okay? So our brother Hassan, in his best Wosei tradition, has reworked the song, and our version is There Is a Bond, B-O-N-D, at Wosei, all right? So this is our first time doing the song. We hope you like it.
There is a bond in Wosei to make the wounded whole. There is a barn in Wolsey to feed the hungry soul. There is a barn in Wolsey to make the wounded whole. There is a barn in Wolsey to feed the hungry soul. Sometimes we feel discouraged and think our work's in vain. But then the Spirit of might revives our souls again. There is a barn in Wolsey to make the wounded whole. There is a barn in Wolsey to feed the hungry soul. Don't ever feel discouraged. Amen-Ra is your friend, embracing sorrow in your heart with joy that does not end. There is a barn in Wolsey to make the wounded whole. There is a barn in Wolsey to feed the hungry soul. If you cannot preach like Malcolm, if you cannot lead like King, you can listen to Mahalia. She will teach you how to sing. There is a barn in Wolsey to make the wounded whole. There is a barn in Wolsey to feed the hungry soul. There is a barn in Wolsey to make the wounded whole. There is a barn in Wolsey to feed the hungry soul. There is a barn to make the wounded whole. There is a barn to feed the hungry soul. There is a barn. There is a barn. There is a barn to feed the hungry soul. There is a barn, there is a barn, there is a barn to feed the hungry soul.
We've come to that time in our service that we call our historical tribute. It's a time that we take out each and every Sunday to pay honor, to pay homage, to pay tribute to some not necessarily famous but significant person, place, or event in our history, in African history. And we do it because we know that if we don't tell our story, it won't be told. All right. So the presenter of this morning's tribute is a brother that has a lot of history right here in Wolsey. There are a few people who have been here 30-plus years, people like Brother Greg and Sister Pam and Sister Ngina, Sister Akanke. There are a few of them. You should never list names because you always forget someone. I probably forgot one or two. But this brother has definitely been around. He is one of the Wolsey historians, and he's here to share with you today one of his stories. Welcome, Brother Katabasi, to the mic.
I want to thank Brother Tyamba for that introduction, but you all probably know who I am by now, but if you don't, take off the blinders. But yes, this is the time for the historical tribute, and it offers us an opportunity to keep alive at least 5 generations of African and African-American history with our people. Also, I'll take just a few minutes to encourage others to step up and sign up for Historical Tribute. I plan to do others. Brother Shango is ready to take your name, get you on the list, and get you set up to go. Good. This morning, with the Historical Tribute, we want to take a look at a period of in African history and try to glean a bit more clarity, and that is the people that actually populated ancient Egypt or ancient Kemet. So often scholars speak in generalized terms as the ancient Egyptians. Well, the ancient Egyptians, they were human beings, and they did not simply evaporate and disappear and go away. These people are somewhere. Well, where are they? Well, as it turns out, scholars, Afrocentric scholars, have done some research in that area, and they have come up with some insights into who some of these people are and were. So I'll be, with the time that's allotted me, I'll be quoting from Dr. Muada Ashby and his work, Egyptian Yoga, The Philosophy of Enlightenment. Also from Dr. Nanda Blanchi Dakwa, who wrote The Africans Who Wrote the Bible. Brother makes a very compelling and powerful argument if you have not read it. Also from the New World Encyclopedia, I've gleaned some information and some notes. And with Dr. Ashby, he says, at about the time when the Sphinx was constructed, and he uses the date 50,000 BC to 10,000 BC. You may find other renderings. These dates rarely seem to merge. About the time when the Sphinx was constructed, 50,000, 10,000 BC, northeast Africa, Ethiopia, Egypt, was an abundant, lush rainforest in which many groups lived. The Sahara Desert was only in its beginning stages of formation. As time passed, climatic changes became more pronounced, leading to the formation and the expansion of the Sahara as the annual rainfall became reduced with each passing millennium. Many civilized groups and tribes found it necessary to leave the north-central African area in order to survive. Two of these groups were the Zulu and the Dogon. And he also mentions in terms of he also mentioned the Yoruba. Now, Dr. Ashby is speaking from the perception of the perspective of culture and historical documentations that he was able to glean. So, what he's saying is he's telling us three ethnic groups that are alive right today and can be traced to various aspects in West Africa that was already in that area in the earliest of times, and that many of them left because of the desertification. We also know that a lot of the indigenous people in that area were scattered during the various invasions, especially with the invasion of the Romans. So Dr. Dakwa goes on and say that other ethnic groups that was in that area, and he does his work primarily through linguistics. So he's a native African from the continent, and like I said, I think he's done some powerful writing. I don't know why the brother didn't get more notice. I'm not sure about his scholarship, how much consistency that he has among the other scholars. But he makes very compelling arguments in his books, and he uses documentation as well. But he lists the Yoruba, the Asante, the Ewe, the Hausa, Kwahu, the Mosi, Igbo, the Ga, the Frafra, and the Kuapim as groups that comprise the main body of ancient Egyptians, and he called those the Akans. And Akans, they're groups of people that is a kingdom, but they're grouped together as a con because of very similarities in cultural practices and linguistic connections. But he also mentioned that there were other tribal groups in that area as well. It was just simply, he's talking about the Akans. So it's fairly well established that indeed there were Africans in that area and they were indigenous to that area. One of the groups that seemingly separated itself from some of the other ethnic groups in terms of its ability to extend its religion. And I'm talking about the Yoruba nation. The Yoruba nation is intricately tied to ancient Kemet, and they've been able to extend their culture to the New World. Dr. Ashby says about the Yoruba, he said, the Yoruba people also reside in West Africa. The Yoruba religion has many similarities with the cosmogony, gods, and divination systems of Egypt. For an example, the Yoruba creation story is almost identical to the Egyptian one, which is described in the Shabaka stone, also known as the Memphite theology. So that linkage is clearly there in the Ancient of Times, and we see the reach of the Yoruba people today in modern America, North American continent, South America, Brazil, in South America, the Yoruba indigenous religion obviously has gone through some changes, but in South America, it's known as Lukumi and Koldombo, and I'm Komdumble, right? Thank you, sister. In Cuba and in Puerto Rico, is known as Santeria, and it's also believed to have influenced Vodun in Haiti. So it's a very powerful religion, and obviously the strength of the religion, of the spiritual system, to endure from the ancients of times and to find its way into the New World. Now, a lot of that was linked to the fact that a great many Yoruba captives were brought here, and brought here to the New World. In fact, there's probably more Yoruba as a single group than probably any other group. And I know probably most of us in this room are of Yoruba descent. I know I am. I know Brother Shango is. And just in this small group, there's just sits two of us that have linkage to the Yoruba nation. But anyway, the Yoruba, and I'll say more about the, if time permit, about the captives coming to the New World. But just a little bit of history, a little bit of background on Yoruba. The term Yoruba was not always known for the category of people that is applied to today. In Europe, the Yoruba people were known as the Aku, A-K-U, the Aku. And that name was derived from the greeting, which is Aku Aro, which means good morning, and Aku Ale, good evening. So they just took the very first part of that greeting and then applied it to that people and called them the Aku. But they were also known as the Nago, the Anago, and Ana. So they're an ancient people, but they weren't necessarily indigenous to the area that they're in right now. They were people that came in from the east. And there's a couple of their versions of their cosmogony that is very interesting, but I don't want to deal with that because of the time limitations. But these people came in from the east into this land in current day West Nigeria, and when they came in, there was a people that was already there. Really, it's been that quick? Wow! There was a people that was already there. A people called the Nok, N-O-K. But the people that came in from the east, they were so highly developed and advanced that they immediately made their presence felt in that area and revitalized that area, and that area became the center for Yoruba land. What Yoruba land was as the area that was previously occupied by the North was occupied by the Yoruba. They immediately began to revitalize the area and to manifest their presence. All of the sons of Odudu-Ra was founders of various cities, and they created this kingdom, this confederacy. And the way it was structured, it wasn't a hardcore confederacy. It was a kind of a loose net confederacy. And the local leaders at the local township area had quite a bit of autonomy. And so it was out of that loose federation and the autonomy of the various city leaders that dissent eventually set in. And it was these internecine wars that created a great many captives that ended up here in the New World. And it was right around that same time, of course, that the Europeans were expanding from their shores into the New World as well. And so there was a great demand for cheap laborers, and these internecine wars were creating a lot of captives. Okay, so looks like my time is just about up, but so I'll summarize it by saying that the total population of the Yoruba is considered to be about 35 million. They are primarily found in West Nigeria, but they're also found in Ghana, Benin, and Togo. So this morning's historical tribute is dedicated to the strength, to the endurance, and I'll just add that the Yoruba were but somewhat of a reflection of these other multi-ethnic groups. It's just the fact that the Yoruba were like in greater numbers, and they seem to have a knack for organization. In fact, it seems like the introduction of the town concept of towns kind of began with the Yoruba. So they kind of have been that kind of people. They're craftspeople, blacksmithing, woodworking, wood carving. So this morning's historical tribute is dedicated to the Yoruba people, but by extension to all of those ethnic groups that was in ancient Egypt and that went out into various parts of Africa and in the world. They took their religion and they took their culture, much of it which has endured over these times, and we find ourselves here practicing portions of it. Every time we say Ashe, it's a Yoruba term. At school, Ile Omide, House of the Children, Yoruba tune. So it's very much a part of our culture and our linkage. I encourage others to investigate your ancestry, and I think we're a bunch of us here that are still represented and still, trying to restore ourselves again. So to the Yoruba people and to all those ethnic groups that survive and struggle against colonialism, imperialism, and occupations, and still maintain their culture, maintain their religions, and extended it into this new world today.
Thank you, Brother Karabazi. Good morning, Wose. Good morning, people. Good morning, Baka family and y'all. Good to see ya. Good to see you. This is the time of our Litany of Sacrifice. And I just want to say a couple things. This is the time we're going into our Kwanzaa season. Yeah, we're going to our Kwanzaa season. The season of the first fruits, the harvest time. And we reap what we sow. And if we sow good seeds, we reap its bounties. And so with that thought in mind, I would like for you to recognize there's baskets going around. And Naka, hey! How are you? Good to see you. She moved from, Naka's one of our babies who grew up in Wosay and she went to Bennett. She's an engineer, science, right? Am I right? Graduated from African Children's Advanced Learning Center. She was in North Carolina, and I understand now you've moved to Atlanta. See, I keep up, girl. Wait a minute. Y'all over there in the corner boxes, I see your Facebook. I keep up. Raise the bro. Y'all doing very good. Hey, sweetheart, how are you? Akosa Waza, student of African Children's Advanced Learning Center. She grew up in our community, Bible study and all of them. Our late Mamu Pacey, we give praises and thanksgiving for her blessings upon us. Baskets are still going around. Is everybody ready? We like you to stand for the Litany of Sacrifices. If you have, it should be on the seats or in the little black book. We're teaching our young. As the call and response. Save us, O Holy One, by your name. Vindicate us by your might. Hear my prayer, divine protector. Listen to the words of my mouth. How can we repay the Holy One for the gifts that have been given to us? We will lift up the cup of salvation and call on the God of our Creator. Bows to our Creator in the presence of all of our people. Gladly we bring our sacrifices to you. We will praise your name, O Amen Ra, for it is good. Umoja, unity. We will strive to maintain unity in the family, community, nation, and race. Kuji Chakalia, self-determination. We shall define, name, create, and speak for ourselves. Ujima, collective work and responsibility. We shall build and maintain our communities together. Our brothers and sisters' problems shall be ours to solve together. Ujima, cooperative economics. Together we shall build and maintain our own businesses and together profit from them. Nia is purpose. We shall make our collective vocation the building and developing of our community and the restoration of our people to our traditional greatness. Kuumba is creativity. We shall do as much as we can in any way we can to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than when we inherited it. Imani is faith. We shall believe with all of our hearts in our Creator, our people, and the righteousness and victory of our struggle. Amen. You are welcome to move to the center. Here are our pillars for prayer, or sit comfortably at your seats. Share with your friends that which you have, for that which you have is a gift of God. Those who fail to share with their friends are shunned for having a selfish soul. Although people might plan for tomorrow, they do not know what will come to pass. But it is righteousness by which people are sustained. Therefore, if misfortune comes and you have been righteous with your friends will welcome you. Peace will be found in a city where friends are forgotten and their needs not answered. Divine Creator, God of our ancestors, most sacred and on high, we give thanks for this day. We thank you for life, for health, for wisdom, for courage, for sustainability. We ask that you lead us and guide us as we do your will, and what we do is pleasing in your sight. We thank you for those who have given this morning to keep our community healthy. We pray and we thank those who wish to give but could not. We ask you to lead us and guide us to ensure that for all this community, we do what we can in any way we can to leave our communities more beautiful and beneficial than when we inherited. We ask for safe passage for those who have gone on, that the wisdom of the ancestors they join, and to watch over us. We thank you for making our stumbling blocks our stepping stones. And as we move into the season of the first fruits of harvest time, we ask that you grant us safety for those who are traveling. We pray for families to be together. We thank you for so much. We thank you for all that you have been. We thank you for all that you do. Though those things we may take for granted, we thank you, divine creator, mother and father, ancestors who have gone before us, whose shoulders we stand on. We thank you. We ask you for forgiveness for our shortcomings. We thank you for your blessings. We thank you for Ileomade, Wose community, and all of our families around the world. We thank you for all the blessings we ask in your most precious and your most holy and sacred name. Ashe. Amen.
Hotep. I'm in Hotep. And the response is Ankh, life, Uja, Seneb, prosperity and health. We give thanks and praise this morning. I'm in Hotep. I'm just trying to make sure y'all awake. You know. If you know God is good, say Ashe. If you know God is good all the time, say Ashe. No matter the circumstance, no matter the condition, no matter the time of life, if you know that God is still in charge of your life, say Ashe. It doesn't matter what's going on out in the world. If God is still in control, you're all right. Ashe. We give thanks and praise to our ancestors, the ones who gave us a tradition. It's important that you have a tradition. A lot of people in the world moving around as if we have no tradition, that somehow the Africans in America lost our history, lost our culture. We didn't lose it. It's just like in your house. Sometimes you lose your keys, and you put your keys somewhere where you couldn't remember where they were. But before you can get in your car, it's an imperative that you find your keys, right? So you didn't lose your keys. You misplaced your keys, right? You didn't lose your culture. You misplaced your culture. It's been here all along. You know, this happened to me last week. I was just about to leave the house, knew I had my keys on me. I had been in the yard. Come in the house and open the drawer and mindlessly set my keys in the drawer, got what I needed, close the drawer. And I look in all the obvious places, you know, because I have a key place. right? Just like you have a place, if you're smart, you have a place where you put your purse, you put your wallet, you put your keys, just in case you got to hurry up and get out your house, right? So sometimes you have all these places, and you have all these things. Sometimes you think your spirituality is at the church. Sometimes you think it's at your meditation site. Sometimes you think it's at your altar, but sometimes it's in your back pocket. Sometimes it's in your glove compartment. Sometimes it's in the trunk of your car. You just forgot where you left your religion. You forgot where you left your spiritual practice. So open the drawer, pull out your keys. The key is mine. Truth, justice, and righteousness. The key is reciprocity and harmony. The key is balance and order. And sometimes we simply forget. We give thanks and praise for our elders, because our elders remind us of who we are, give us role models for the work, and we thank our elders and ask them for permission to continue. Is it all right with the elders that we continue? Give all the elders a round of applause. The Raiders must be playing. So we thank you. We understand, We give thanks. This is an opportunity. Yeah, you hold up a Raider jacket in the back. We have this opportunity to come together. And first of all, we want to give honor and praise to the Most High for a new ancestor, Upesi Mtabuzi, who many of us went to her homegoing celebration at Heart and Soul Center for Light a few days ago. And it was a blessing to celebrate our sister's life. We all come to do something. And when you do what you came to do, you can leave. Ashe. Upesi Mtabuzi came and did what she was supposed to do. And when we learn, it's interesting because we know people and then we learn more about them during those ceremonies. And there's things I learned about her that I didn't know. I knew her because we all have a certain facet or angle that we know someone. I know her mostly as a sister who helped lead Sisters of Tomorrow, because Shanaka and Imani, two of my children, went through that program. So no matter what else she did, that was the thing I held her up for. Because that group of folks, Mama Pam, all the sisters that are part of that group who helped our young women figure out what it means to be a young woman in this society at this time was important. Her family will miss her. We will miss her. But she has become one of the revered ancestors. Because there's some ancestors who just happen to die. There's other ancestors who are revered, whose names will be called, whose memories won't be allowed to slip away from us, and she is one of those. So we will pour libation for Sister Upesi, just like we pour libation for Jasiri, just like we pour libation for John Lacey, just like we pour libation for Jeruba Alsberg. These are the people that over the 33-year history of the Wose community that we have assembled a set of ancestors from many different walks of life who now can guide us, give us direction, give us encouragement. And we say thank you to them for their lives, for being a role model. Next week we'll celebrate our anniversary. And yeah, we still, to me, that's a big deal. Not because it's simply like the calendar turned one more page, but it's a big deal because sometimes I think we forget that what we're doing is revolutionary. In the United States of America, for black people to first of all call themselves Africans is revolutionary. Even if you did nothing else. To call yourself by your right name is revolutionary. And then to have the audacity to start a spiritual community that wasn't Christian, Muslim, or something else. And I don't have nothing against other people doing what they do. But that takes a certain, and then to base it on the Nguzo Saba, and to base it on Ma'at, and to base it on who we are as people, that's revolutionary. Because all revolution means is to change, to evolve, to make something transform. And if we do our work well, we transform not only ourselves, but people around us. So we give thanks for our anniversary celebration, and we were going to do it today, but we'll wait and do it next week to have a formal induction of our Council of Elders. Sister Tracy was let me know that she was sick, and I didn't want her to miss that. So with your indulgence, we'll do that as part of our anniversary program next week. But we're happy that we're still here as an institution. We're happy we're still teaching classes. We're happy that Ile Omode is now in its 28th year. 28. That's saying something. Because, somebody called me. We were at the memorial service, and somebody asked me a question about, and people always do this. Well, their first two questions, they say, "You still at Wose?" And I go, "Yeah." I ain't got no other choices, really. I ain't going nowhere. And number two, "How's the school doing?" I said, "School's doing great." And then they said, "Well, you all are about the last one standing who are African-based schools. I was talking to Jennifer Muhammad, who is a friend of mine who lives in D.C., and she's been doing homeschooling with a group of other parents who also homeschool, and they get together at a community recreation center and they share lessons. And I said, well, you sound like you basically doing a school. You might as well go ahead and get a building and call it that, right? And then she asked me, well, how's Ileoma D doing? I said, we got a waiting list. We've outgrown the building that we're in. We need a bigger space. And so there's something about that progress, even if it's step by step, incrementally. You know, we eat the elephant bit by bit, as they say, that we are getting to where we need to be. I want to just talk for a few minutes. We used this as a conversation piece this morning in our New Life Seminary class. We just finished a 6-week class on the Hosea. I enjoyed the class. I always enjoy the class because I always feel like I learned something as I'm trying to share something that our ancestors have shared with us. So this morning, we finished up our class by looking at the books of contemplation. And I'm going to invite you, if you have a Hosea next to you, pull out your Hosea. It's the book that we use here at Wose. It's a small set of translations of the words of our ancestors. We know that book really only holds a few of the big ideas that they said, but Karinga did us a service as a community, as an African international global community, by starting this project, and then said that there's ways that others can actually add to this project. But this morning, we finished up on the book of contemplation. And the book of contemplation is an important one, and I think for many of us, when we first became familiar with the Hosea, it was a book that we didn't spend a lot of time focusing on. Because it's not a happy book. It's not a happy, joy kind of set of passages, right? Now, you know, the book's a moral narrative with Kuanampu is interesting. It gives us a story about a man who had a hardship and how he preached to the community about how to reestablish mind. In the book of Creations, we hear about the idea that African people had about how creation came into being. In the books of wise instruction, Ptahhotep and Ani and others give us the wisdom for living. But when you get to the book of Contemplations, this is a grown folks book. It's like, look, kids can read it and young people can read it, but this is for grown folks. Because grown people deal with things responsibly. Grown people deal with things that are hard. Like if you're a parent, or even if you just got kids around you, you know, that's a serious thing. Like having kids is serious. You got to be on your game. Because your kids will ask you questions. You be trying to zigzag, and they be like, You like, so tell me about that. What's that sex thing about? And you be like, well, you know, why is all the people out there on drugs? Well, you know, you gotta do a little thing. It's like a little Jim Brown, you know, a little, you know, you gotta zigzag a little bit. But the book of contemplation is for grown folks spiritually. Because if you're spiritually mature, you get to an understanding that things don't always go well. Things don't always work out the way you thought they were going to work out. So this morning, we want to just look at a set of passages from that work. Under the theme, under the banner, the headline, Love Your Soul Now. Love your soul now. I'm not inviting you to love somebody else quite yet. Love your soul now. As human beings, as people growing up in the Western culture, we think about mind, body, and spirit. And that's like a kindergarten version of who we are as African people, because African people had an idea about the 10 different parts of the human makeup. They talked about the kabit. They talked about the ak. They talked about the ba, the ka, the ib. Even your name was part of your spiritual makeup. That's why as black people, you don't like people calling you out your name. Or maybe some of us do. Because we let folks call us out our name all the time. We let folks call us Negro. That is not our name. We let folks call us Afro-Americans. That is not our name. Even black, that's a color. And it signifies culture, but that's not our name. People have been calling us out our name since we got here, but you're African. And you ain't got to accept. It's like Mission Impossible. You can choose to accept it. Right? You can choose to accept who you are. But you're going to get treated like an African if you look like us. Right? Ashe. When you were a little kid, you didn't like people calling you out of your name. And now little kids calling each other B's and N's and hoes. And no, that's not your name. So, don't let people call you out of your name. But in that time of the book of contemplation, this loving your soul now, who you are, your makeup, who you are as a full person, there was a focus on your soul life. See, black folks, when we in the 60s, when they came up with that term soul power, it was James Brown, some other folks, but that's a really interesting thing to call ourselves as the soul people that have soul power, because that elevates us past the mind. It elevates us past the body. It gets us to the most important definition of who you are. You're a spiritual being. You're a divine light trapped in a body that has a purpose. So your body is your temple, and if your temple moves around and your temple gets defiled, your spirit is not going to like it. If you use your body to procrastinate and not do the things you know you need to do today, it's offensive to your soul to waste time. All right? I'm just saying what the ancestors said. I ain't got to make nothing up. It's rich. So in our tradition, in this passage, there's 3 questions that are raised that are important. Number 1, what is your complaint? Because everybody got a complaint. At some stores, they got a whole complaint department, a whole complaint section, complaint box. Sometimes you think it's at your house because people calling you, well, guess what happened? And they start complaining. Like, this is not the complaint department, right? But what is your complaint? Second question, what is your offering? What is your sacrifice? What is the thing you're going to bring to the situation? Because an offering or a sacrifice usually is something that stands in the place of a greater thing. You're putting something down on the table that you hope will have a value to get to a greater thing. Right? So the litany of sacrifice. When we make a sacrifice, it's because we think that money that we put in is going to get amplified to do a greater thing at Wose. A greater thing with Ilioma Day. A greater thing in the personal life when somebody needs something. Ashe? So what is your offering? And the third question is, how do you show love for your spirit? How do you show love for your spirit? Because I have a premise that I believe that if you show love for you, then you can love others. But if you don't like you, how you going to like somebody else? If you don't like who you are and what you do, when you look in the mirror, how is somebody else going to like you? Right? We want people to like us, and we don't like ourselves. And the reason we say we don't like ourselves, on the surface, we may say, oh, yeah, I like myself, but then what do you do for you? Right? Sometimes it's not selfish to just do you. Because if you handle your business, maybe you can help handle somebody else's business. Ashe? Because a lot of times we skip step 1. We over in other people's business before we figured out our business. Ashe? Sometimes we think, I'm going to go help you first. Right? God loves those who help themselves. So the first question, what is your complaint? In the Hosea, if you turn to the book of contemplation, there's a set of writings, like when you first start on page 77, it's a man, Kakeper Raseneb, who says, I meditate on what has happened, on the things which have come to pass throughout the land. Changes are taking place, and it is not like last year. One year is more troublesome than the next. The land is in turmoil and being destroyed. Ma'at, righteousness and order, has been cast out, and is fed. Evil and chaos is in the council hall. The way of God is violated, and God's commandments are brushed aside. The land is in turmoil, and there is mourning everywhere. Then he goes on, he says, everybody's silent about it. The whole land is in great trouble, and none are wise enough to know it. None are angry enough to speak out, and every day wakes to suffering. Thus my suffering is long and heavy. The weak and wretched lack the strength to save themselves from that which overwhelms them. It is painful to keep silent about what one hears, and yet it is of no use to answer the ignorant. People only love their own words. Everyone builds on crookedness, and right speaking is abandoned. Tea Party. I have spoken to you, my heart, and now answer me. The heart that is approached must not keep silent, for surely the servant and the master share the same fate. And thus are many of the things that must weigh heavy on you also. And it goes on. It goes on to say the land is in trouble. The land is barren and none conceive. There is blood everywhere and no shortage of the dead. When we read this passage from 4,000 years ago, it resonates with us because if we pay attention in our society, we know that the land is in turmoil. Congress cut food stamps as if that's going to help the person who is hungry. People are fighting around this Affordable Care Act or Obamacare as if the system wasn't messed up before the law passed. Many people go to the doctor and can't get treatment because they can't afford it. Get sent home because the hospital doesn't want to run the expensive tests. Had a friend of mine in Arkansas I was talking to, and her son turns out had spinal meningitis because he got sent home from the hospital 4 times. And the hospital said, oh, he's just running a fever, give him some aspirin, and he'll be all right tomorrow. Why? Because they didn't want to run the test. See, the land is in turmoil. And we look around and we wonder, what is going on? And so there was a man in the book of Dialogue with the Soul. If you turn to page 80. And this is a portion of the story. We talked about it in detail. I give you the Cliff Note version. I give you the short version, the Twitter version, the 140-character version. You know, there's always a longer story, Ashe. But this man was a man who was tired of life. And sometimes you can relate to this, because sometimes there's so much stuff going on that you're just tired. So many things are happening with our kids and witnessing violence, and we're just tired. We don't want to hear one more bad thing, Baba Sidney. We don't want to hear one more thing that happens, because we care about our children, we care about our community, we care about our parents. When this man was, for whatever reason, tired of life. And he talks about how bad things are in the society. And then he glorifies death. He says, death to me today is like health to the ill, like going outdoors after confinement, like the smell of myrrh, like sitting under the sail on a windy day. Death to me today is like the fragrance of lotus, like sitting on the shores of feasting. Death to me today is like a well-trodden way, like returning home from the war, like clearing up the clouds from the sky, like a person discovering that which was unknown. Death to me today is like longing to see home after spending many years in captivity. It's almost like he said, death to me today is like if I could go to Africa and have my culture back. If death to me today is like if I could spend the time with my family and doing the things that my family likes to do and not worry about white supremacy. Death to me today is like Dr. King living to be 80, 90 years old. Death to me today is like Malcolm being sitting there with Dr. King and Coretta and Betty, and they got to be old people, not killed and assassinated and exiled and hurt when they were young at the prime of life. Death to me today would be like all of my children graduating from high school. Death to me today would be like homicides being a thing of the past. See, you got to put it in the terms of what they were saying. And they were saying death would be an escape. But this man is having an argument with his Ba. And in our tradition, your Ba and your Ka are related. Your Ba is that eternal aspect of the soul. The Ka is your individuality, your individual personality, your individual ego. But the way that our ancestors in Kemet thought about this, they said your Ka on this earth in your body has to unite with that larger soul, because that is what creates transformation. That is what creates a connection, a unification, a reintegration with God. That's a deep concept. That's an African deep thought, that your salvation is not based on somebody else's sacrifice. It's not based on what someone else does. It's based on how you engage your soul. Nobody can do that for you. Just to translate it, even in the Christian tradition, your grandmama and them used to say, and if you don't understand what grandmama and them means, get an Ebonic dictionary. Grandmother and your other relations, they would say, grandmama can't preach you into heaven. Grandmama can't pray you into paradise. You got to do this. You got to put some feet up under those prayers. You have to do the work. That's the difference in this tradition. It's not a passive tradition. You don't get to sit on your hands and say, well, in the by and by one day. You got to do some work. You got to do some soul work. Take some soul power. Use your soul energy. You got to do something. Because if you don't do it, it ain't going to happen. And in our tradition, that's kind of okay, because guess what? You get to come back and try it again. But you're going to come back in a different form. Now, coming back as a rock ain't the same as doing this, because you got a lot more options as a human being. So for a rock to work out its transformation, for a rock to work out its salvation, probably take a lot. Rock got to sit there and wait. Like, wow, man, I hope somebody come along and turn me into a statue. You know, wow, I hope I could be somebody's driveway. They better come on. You know, a rock is passive. But on the evolutionary scale of spirit, you got the highest possibility to be at your highest divine self like this. So you got an opportunity. You ain't a rock. You know, you didn't come back as a fish. You know, if you was a fish, you got to worry about fishermen. You know, you got every stage got somebody to worry about. Ashe? So he said to this man is complaining, and he's in an argument with his soul, and he wants to die soon so he can get out of it. Sometimes you feel like that. You don't want to deal with this. You may not want to die, but you certainly want to get away from this. You want to do something different. You don't want to go to work tomorrow at 9 o'clock. I already know. Somebody's sitting here thinking about it. As soon as I said, they say, why you got to bring that up? I don't want to go to that TSA thing. Man, I know. I already know. Some days you wake up and be like, I don't want to do this. I want to read what I want to read and look at the TV and drink juice. I don't want to be up. I don't want to go to work. Say Ashe. I already know. And I work for myself, and I'm mad at my boss most of the time. It was like, man, come on. Brother Greg, why I got to do that this week? It's too much, man. I want to go outside and in the garden, you know. They ain't paying me to do the garden, no. But this man was having an argument. And he was going back and forth. He's trying everything. He said, well, you know, it's like almost like a brother on the corner. Hey, blood, check this out. You know, I'm your boss. So, I mean, you my boss. So, you know, if we're going to get down, you got to come with me, right? Right? I got this eternal life over here, blood. Eternal life, blood. It's death. Somebody may know that reference. Anyway, he's looking at it like, wait a minute. Because he made the argument, well, first of all, if you go with me, we can go together. If you agree to this, we can die and become eternal tomorrow. You know, if you do this, the judges are going to be kind to me. He went through all of the arguments. And at first, his soul was like, just like somebody you get an argument with sometime and they just don't want to argue with you. And they get all quiet on you. And you be like, why you ain't saying nothing? Because I don't feel like arguing, okay? We cool. I don't feel like sometimes it's just like that. I know how I am. Sometimes I don't feel like having an argument. Like, I'm getting to the point now, if I'm going to argue about something, this better be something really important, right? We're going to have a debate. It ain't going to be no argument. I ain't trying to have my blood pressure go up. I'm trying to be, like, calm and you get loud, I'm going to get quiet, right? And people get upset when you do that because they want somebody to argue with. So this man got upset. He's like, why you won't say nothing? And he kept making pleas. And then at the end, his soul finally said, look. It was almost like if you read through the lines, it's like, look, sit down. Let me talk to you. Let me talk some sense into you. Because our tradition says, one, you cannot take yourself out. Because if you take yourself out, it's all bad. It's all bad. Right? You leaving people behind, they're going to be real hurt. You taking your name and you casting away all of the parts of your spirit out into the ether, hoping that it's going to be reintegrated at some point. The tradition don't play. Right? It got some serious consequences for certain things. So he said to him, look, you gotta stick with me. The Bible is saying you got to do this with me in the natural course of things. It's like an egg. When that chick is in that egg, you cannot break that egg open early or that chick will die. The chick got to break out that egg just in time because if it stays in there too long, it's run out of food. It's going to die. But the beautiful part about that imagery of the ba and the ka in an egg is that you are consuming yourself. You are consuming the environment and the trials and tribulations around you to be able to be the next thing you're supposed to be. Ashe? You got to work at being the next thing that you're supposed to be. If you're satisfied with how you are now, that's cool. But you know what they say, if you're not growing, you must be dying. It's one or the other. If you go out in nature, plants don't just stay static. They either grow or they die. There's a pecan tree in my grandmother's yard. The tree used to produce beautiful pecans every year. That tree don't produce fruit anymore. And when you look at it, you're going like, the tree must be asking itself, well, what's my purpose if I'm not bearing fruit? And eventually that tree is going to die. Even in nature, even with the sun and the air and the soil and all of what's needed, things die. Why? Because that tree needs to become something else. You have to die as you currently are to become something else. Ashe? And we don't like that sometimes. Sometimes we want to just keep being what we're doing because that's what's comfortable. I'm sure the chick in that egg is comfortable for a while. It's eating the nutrition that's around it. It's protected from the outer world of wolves and foxes and people who make omelets. It's protected. Ashe? That chick don't have to worry about too much. But at a certain point, it becomes imperative. And guess what? The chick begins to do something that would on its surface would seem to be counterintuitive. Why would you break out of this protective shell to get out in this unknown world? That's just how it is. And that chick methodically starts pecking and pecking and pecking and pecking, working at it, just like we teach our children. If you want to learn math, you got to work at it and work at it and work at it. If you want to be a strong spiritual person, you got to pray and meditate and serve. It takes pecking. Incrementally, no big dramatic magical thing. Sometimes people looking for magic in the Western sense. That magic, that's not going to help you. That's illusion. Right? Magic comes from words of power. Magic comes from being prepared to take advantage of opportunities. Magic comes from doing the things you're supposed to do, and then God will bless you with an opportunity to use all the skills, all the aspirations and dreams you have to do what you came here to do. Ashe? So he says, and what is your complaint? And he's complaining about all these things, and you got to think about it in your life. What is your complaint? Only you know the answer to that question. What's your complaint? And once you say it out loud a few times and write it in your journal and talk to your therapist about it and go to your friend's house and say, man, guess what? Whatever you got to do, say it and get it out and be done with that part. Nobody want to hear you complain all the time. What Bob Marley say? Don't be no screw face. He's like, every time I see you, you got a complaint. Like, I know I don't like people I would cross the street. There's this woman I used to see all the time on the Workforce Investment Board. And every time I see her, she got to complain about something. I was at the corner of, like, Clay and 14th, and she was, like, at about Jefferson and 14th. And I saw her. I was like, oh, man. I was like, oh, the light go changed. And when I passed, I waved, and I was cool. Sometimes you don't want to hear all that. Ashe? And if you're the one doing all of that, you may wonder why people don't call you back. Right? Or why people cross the street. What is your complaint? Once you figure it out, get it out, and that's cool. But then figure out, what is your offering? What is your sacrifice? What is the thing that you're going to bring to bear on that situation? What is your offering? There's a story about Frederick Douglass and Sojourner Truth. You know Sojourner Truth's story. Most of us know a little bit about her. From 1799 to 1883, she was a traveler in this life. She was born into slavery, came into the world in a household that spoke Dutch. And you know how helpful Dutch is in North America. Ain't but a few people speaking Dutch. She wasn't literate, couldn't read and write, but she had a burning desire for freedom for African people. And she went out and traveled and I hadn't realized it until I saw this fact, for 40 years. 40 years. Sojourner Truth was out on the roads preaching about abolition, trying to do it from a spiritual perspective. That is a sacrifice. 40 years. And you think about, put yourself in Sojourner Truth space. She ain't had no entourage. She ain't had no business manager setting up speaking engagements for her. You know, she didn't have no manager talking about, you know, like, she didn't have no front man going like, yeah, man, here comes Sojourner. This is her. And her nephew, I think. Her nephew, who lived to be 24 years old, and he passed away. But she was mostly out here by herself. The way she paid for stuff sometimes, she had pictures of herself. And she would sell the picture. And that's how she would raise money. She said, I sell the shadow to support the substance. For 40 years, this is how she was living. She was in a room once, and she had to stand up. She pulled out a breast and said, ain't I a woman too? Talking to white women who acting like black women weren't women. Didn't I suckle your children and mine too? You know, she was powerful, but she had this interesting moment with her good friend, Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass, you know his story, because he also was born in chattel slavery in that same period in Maryland. Frederick Douglass taught himself to read and write. That's a powerful statement. He taught himself to read and write to become the best orator of his day. Not just any old body, but Frederick Douglass could give a speech. Read his 4th of July speech. Just that one. How eloquent that was. Say, what is it in a day for me, for the slave? Like, why would I rejoice? But Frederick Douglass, just like us, just like everybody, he had his low moments. He had his moments where he didn't think abolition was ever going to come. Frederick Douglass was the same way, moving around the country, moving around the world, teaching people, advocating for the end of chattel slavery. And he had some moments. And in 1847, he was in Salem, Oregon, giving a speech. And he was despondent. He was like the man who's having a conversation with his Ba. He was like Ka Kepa Rasaneb. He was like many of us who have a lamentation, who have a complaint, who don't feel good anymore. And he was speaking in such depressed terms that he asked the question, had God abandoned the African American? Because it was taking so long for slavery to come. This is after hundreds of years of chattel slavery. And there was no generation who understood something other than slavery, unless you were born someplace else. So he's giving this speech, and he says slavery can only be destroyed by bloodshed. And so Journal Truth, who had previously said, she had doing her work, a quote attributed to her, she says, "I am not going away." She was saying this to the people who wish she would stop talking. She's like, "I am not going away. I'm going to stand here, and I'm going to stay here and stand in the fire like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego." That's what she said. That's what she said. She said, "I'm here." And when Frederick Douglass in that speech in 1847 stood up and questioned whether God had abandoned the African Americans, one of her most famous statements was, "Frederick, is God dead?" It stopped the show. It stopped the conversation. You imagine somebody giving a speech and they stand up in the audience and say, "Frederick," and this is your friend, somebody who knows you, who says, "Frederick, is God dead?" And Frederick Douglass had to answer. He said no, which is why there's going to have to be bloodshed in order for this slavery to end. But see, these are two people who were giving sacrifice, who had a complaint, who were then loving their souls here, because Sojourner Truth was being absolutely who she was in that moment. She didn't hold back from being who she was just because Frederick Douglass was being who he was. So that's why both of them are right, because both of them Frederick Douglass knew there had to be some great battle to end chattel slavery. And then you got these folks now talking about it wasn't about slavery. Let's be clear. It was around Southern white elites wanted to have the lifestyle that they wanted to have, and your ancestors working for free. That's what it was about. So all this stuff they got out here now about Southern heritage and, all that. No. And I get mad every time I go to Pine Bluff, because just like every other Southern town, they got a little statue of some Confederate soldier in front of the courthouse talking about how great he was. And I wish I had another life, because I would be blowing some statues up. That rock I was talking about, that rock would be like, "I'm stuck here in a Confederate statue." Like, I'd be freeing some rocks. Okay? Man. But Frederick Douglass they were both doing what they were supposed to do. They were both loving their souls here. And the soul finally says to him, "Cast your complaint aside. Cast your complaints aside, my comrade and brother." Because he said, it's still me and you, bruh. It's still us, sister. "Make offerings on the sacrificial fire and cling to life as I have said. Love me, your soul, here. Set aside thoughts of death and desire death only when your body joins the earth. Then I will alight on you after you have become truly weary, and we shall dwell together forever." Love your soul here. It's the key part of who you are. Love your soul here by nurturing your spirit, doing the things you need to do. Think of the earth as your spiritual gymnasium. You need to do, if you're a jealous person, do some jealousy jumping jacks. Like, get it out, right? Work it out, right? If you are overly critical, do some criticism crunches. Like get your workout on. Get your spiritual workout on. If you need to do some running, do some sacrificial sprints. Do some meditation marathon. Do something. Do whatever you came to do, whatever you got to work out. Find your spiritual gymnasium, your spiritual Club One, your spiritual 24 Nautilus, whatever you got to do. Because you'll do it for your body, many of us. We'll go to the gym, work out our body, but will we work through our spiritual needs on this earth? Love your soul here. Feed your spirit. Feed it a nutritious diet of prayer and meditation. Feed it a nutritious diet of wise and sage words of truth. Feed it on an ancestral presence and strength. Call on your ancestors when you need them. Call on Sister Upesi when you need her to do girls' work. Call on Mama Jasiri when you're working in early childhood education. Call on Jeruba Alsbrook if you want to sing a song that's going to touch people's hearts. Call on Ella Baker if you want to organize the people, not from the front, but from the back. Call on Malcolm if you need to speak truth to power and don't care where the chips may fall. Call on Nzinga if you want to fight for freedom and say, my house, my church is a haven, is a sanctuary for the free if you can make it here. Love your soul here and now, as Imhotep did, and Harriet Tubman did, and Frederick Douglass, and Sojourner Truth, and John Lacey, and Ruth Hill, and Bobby Hodge, and David Hodge, and John Terry, and all of those great and powerful ancestors. Love your soul now. Ashe. I'm going to ask you to stand if you would. As we close out, you can join hands.